Mr. Cohen, how long did you work in the White House?
I never worked in the White House.
And that's the point, isn't it, Mr. Cohen?
No, sir.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not, sir.
You wanted to work in the White House.
No, sir.
You didn't get brought to the dance.
Sir.
And now?
I was extremely proud to be personal attorney to the President of the United States of America. I did not want to go to the White House.
Is that true? Immediately tweeted out Rudy Giuliani. That's not true by multiple sources. In fact, I have a tape here on CNN with him talking to Chris Cuomo saying, I hope to be asked to go to Washington. Joining us now is the President of the United States personal attorney and good friend, Rudy Giuliani. Mr. Mayor, welcome back.
Brian, it's always a pleasure. How are you?
I wanted to start where I saw you tweeted. That was a lie, right?
Well, that one is about as provable perjury I've ever seen. So far, if you just look online, there are about 5 witnesses. And then, of course, the tape with Cuomo. And I have to tell you, I don't want to be a witness, but he told me the same thing. And he even complained to me that he didn't get a job. I mean, it was well known. I mean, I not only heard it from him, I heard it from other people who, secondarily would say. And then, of course, there was just talk that he was very upset when he didn't get one.
So with the whole Stormy Daniels situation and the payments and the checks as Exhibit A for $35,000 in a series of payments, legal experts have said this is very problematic because he was the one receiving the checks and Donald Trump did sign at least one of them.
Well, it really isn't, but because they don't have any sense of history. Look, we brought all that out 10 months ago. There was nothing new in what he said. We brought out 10 months ago that he made the payments. It's our view of it that the president didn't know about it at the time. And then the president, when he found out about it, made arrangements for reimbursement. Now, it's not a campaign contribution, Brian, because one of the purposes of it was to shield Melania, his wife, and his family from the bad publicity. And he himself acknowledged that twice when he said the hardest thing was when he had to go lie to Melania. So if you go back to his earlier explanations on tape, of which there are many, he said he made those payments primarily for a personal purpose. So if you go back to some of the other cases that exist, if I make a so-called campaign expense, but one of the reasons for it is personal, and I would have made it anyway had I not been in a campaign, then it's not a campaign contribution. That's clear. So the Southern District is pursuing a faulty theory with regard to Cohen, but he pled guilty to it, never tested. I really doubt they're going to use a questionable theory to pursue, other people.
Andy McCarthy, not an enemy of the president at all. I think he's playing it pretty fair, but does know the Southern District as you do. I think you brought him in. He says the problem with the Stormy Daniels thing is the stream of payments that it wasn't disclosed.
Well, you wouldn't have disclosed them if they weren't a campaign contribution. Andy, who I love and I think is a great lawyer, I don't think he's done enough research on the interpretations of a campaign finance payment. The Edwards case is the main one, but there are about 5 others. It's very simple. If let's say I'm going for a debate, and my political advisor says to me, "You got the worst suits in the world.
Right?
You got to buy a suit because you got to look better on that on television." I go buy the suit. Can I use campaign money for it? No, I can't, because I would have bought the suit anyway. I buy suits regularly anyway. So if a woman comes to you and threatens to come out with a terrible story about you that can hurt you, and let's say it's untrue, but it can hurt you in the campaign, and your wife and family are going to get very upset with you, they're going to get very angry at you, They're going to be very hurt, and you pay her for both of those reasons, it's not a campaign. Think about this. If I were running for office, I could pay off all my lawsuits with campaign funds. If I have 4 lawsuits against me, I get the campaign to pay for all of them. It's a campaign. So this is let's call it a bull, theory. It will never fly. Never. Not worried about it.
So I don't know who wrote her questions, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez won pretty quick on where this investigation's going. Let's listen to this exchange, Mr. Mayor.
To your knowledge, did the president ever provide inflated assets to an insurance company?
Yes.
Who else knows that the president did this?
Alan Weisselberg, Ron Lieberman, and Matthew Calamari.
And where would the committee find more information on this? Do you think we need to review his financial statements and his tax returns in order to compare them?
Yes, and you'd find it at the Trump org.
So he's basically saying the CFO is going to come in there, and these other people who I've never met are also going to come in there to try to explore whether he did these things. Mr. Mayor, your reaction?
My reaction is that's about as true as he wasn't asking for a job. He didn't represent foreign governments. That's another area of really serious perjury. There are about 5 areas that Congressman Meadows and Congressman Jordan pointed out in their very, very powerful letter to the Attorney General, referring it for criminal investigation. The man is not worthy of belief. And the reality is the Congresswoman is wrong, too. If somebody makes an allegation that I did something wrong on my taxes, Congress can't investigate that, even if it's the president. I mean, the IRS has already gone over those taxes. If it is to be investigated, a prosecutor has to investigate it. They're not a prosecutorial agency. They get taxes in order to make tax legislation, not to prosecute people for alleged tax crimes.
Now, Mr. Mayor, it sounds logical to me that Adam Schiff or Elijah Cummings should not be looking into the Trump organization's practices. However,
right.
it sounds like they're going to subpoena him to the CFO to come up and these other names to come up.
They haven't done it yet, so I'll have to give the president legal advice. But I tell you, as a legal expert, it certainly would be my first instinct to resist all those and say, refer it. You want to do that? Do what the congressman did. The 2 congressmen referred Cohen for criminal prosecution. They didn't have Congress start the criminal prosecution. They have an idea of what Article 1, 2, and 3 of the Constitution say. So if Schiff and Cummings and all these others want something done about his taxes, should be referred to the Justice Department or the IRS, not Congress. But that's why the president, I know they get angry at him when he says this, but that's why this is a witch hunt, Brian. This is not anything like any investigation I've ever seen. This is like looking at a man and saying, just take any man and say, I'm going to search his whole life.
Yep.
I'm going to try to find something he did wrong. And so far, they've been doing it to the tune of about $50 million, and they haven't found, in a good old New York word, bupkis.
In the Mueller investigation. But the Southern District of New York has people who like the president, concerned. Like Chris Christie said, I'm worried about the Southern District of New York. Andy McCarthy said this all is a sideshow. The real show is the Southern District of New York. Now, does that worry you? Would you represent the president in that respect?
Well, of course, yes.
Okay.
I would. I know those cases really well. I do not think there's anything there to concern us. I mean, concern us. When they come up with cockamamie theories, we got to deal with it. Like we had to do with collusion. We've been dealing with collusion for 2 years. They did a whole counterintelligence investigation, a phony one, no evidence. The big news the other day is even Cohen can't come up with a good lie about collusion. Don't you think if he could come up with a lie he could have told he would?
Yep.
The reason he can't do it is there's so much darn corroboration that there was no collusion that he would really get destroyed if he did that. So he and his lawyer, Lanny Davis, was smart enough to stay away from that. But they sure did a poor job of preparing him. Man, he got ripped apart by Jordan and Meadows. I mean, those guys,
right.
Particularly when they caught him on the foreign governments that he was representing.
Well, it was explained to me by the governor. He said that Republicans should have done a better job. When someone said, "Oh, he doesn't tell me directly," he has certain ways of talking and a secret code that any lawyer or anybody looking to defend the president would have said, "What the heck are you talking about? Are you going to tell me the president has a secret code and we're supposed to go with the secret code complaints?"
Chris is being a little bit harsh. I thought they got what I would consider, man, I tried, 50 to 100 cases, and I supervised thousands. I thought they got tremendous stuff out of him when they got him on those foreign, and when they got him to not only say that he didn't look for a job, but then to boast about it and expand on it, and it's going to be hard for him to say I didn't understand the question.
Right.
And then there are about 3 other areas that I can't reveal. But they had their own purpose in mind. And if they were working for me as assistant U.S. attorneys, I'd give them a promotion.
Okay, I want you to hear what he did say about Roger Stone, the president, and a speakerphone.
Days before the Democratic convention, I was in Mr. Trump's office when his secretary announced that Roger Stone was on the phone. Mr. Trump put Mr. Stone on the speakerphone. Mr. Stone told Mr. Trump that he had just gotten off the phone with Julian Assange, and that Mr. Assange told Mr. Stone that within a couple of days there would be a massive dump of emails that would damage Hillary Clinton's campaign. Mr. Trump responded by stating to the effect, "Wouldn't that be great?"
So Rona Graff transferred the call. She's probably going to get called up there. What is Rudy Giuliani as the president's attorney? What does that mean to you?
Well, since I don't know what they're going to do, I can't comment on that in detail, except to say two things. One, it sounds fishy to me because I believe Assange, at least a week or two before that call, had already announced that he was going to do it. So this big secret that he's talking about was known to everybody. So it sounds kind of ridiculous that Stone would call him up, who, by the way, and that part has been investigated. Stone denies the call. So it would be kind of weird that Stone would call him up and say, "President, I got unbelievable news for you. Assange is going to release." Well, he had said that 10 days before, publicly. So I think this is another area where Cohen kind of tripped over himself. So there was no big surprise in that.
All right.
I can't say anything more about it, but I don't think it's going to turn out to mean anything.
So do you believe the Mueller investigation is going to be dropping next week?
Only read the tea leaves, Brian. I have no inside information that it is.
I heard they cleaned out their offices. The grand jury has not been convened. Is that
all the same things that you've heard, I've heard, because they all come from leaks as opposed to they're calling us and telling us, we're going to do it in 10 days. We're going to do it tomorrow. We did it yesterday. I mean, as far as I know, they could have submitted the report to the Justice Department already. Remember, the Justice Department has to review it and then have some kind of internal discussion with them. I always expected that we would be notified when the Justice Department was ready to decide what are we going to do about it.
right?
We'll see. I mean,
I would assume they'd call you. Mr. Mayor, last thing, the story in the New York Times said the president cleared Jared Kushner and his daughter of security clearance over the objections of Don McGahn and General Kelly, who was chief of staff at the time. What do you think about this story? And if memos exist, what do you do?
I really don't know anything about it. I mean, I'm not involved. I wasn't involved in that. I mean, Jared and Ivanka are good friends of mine, and I thought the whole thing about holding up the security clearance was, to me, really unfair. But beyond being a friend and knowing it from the outside, I don't know the details of it.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, how do you feel right now about your client and his case?
I thought Cohen really fell apart. I don't see how you can put that man on a witness stand. And I think here's the irony of it. Lenny Davis and he brought him in there in part so that he could reduce his sentence. Now he's looking at possibly 2 or 3 more criminal charges and spending more time in jail. That's a hell of an outcome.
Right.
I mean, those perjury prosecutions can't be ignored. One is provable by tape, and the other is provable by document.
Gotcha.
And look what they did to Flynn.
I hear you.
Flynn gets prosecuted when the FBI doesn't think he's lying. This guy has lied to millions of people. And where's Cummings? Didn't Cummings say he would hang him or something if he lied?
Yeah.
The first one. Well, right now he's going to be the last one. Boy, he went and hid once his witness started lying.
Right. Mr. Mayor, I can't thank you enough for coming on.
All right.
This is what the country's talking about. They want your perspective. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Mayor Rudy Giuliani.